In May 1945, a temporary detention camp near the Austrian border held 23 German women in profound despair.
Their visibly swollen bellies served as stark, undeniable evidence of war's indiscriminate brutality. Among them, 90-year-old Elsa Hoffman felt a distinct kick as she pressed a hand to her abdomen. Just as American soldiers approached the barbed wire fence, "They're here." Margaret, the eldest of the group, whispered, her voice trembling. "God save us all." Elsa was no stranger to the harrowing narratives. Every German woman had been subjected to chilling whispers of the atrocities that befell unarmed women when encountered by enemy soldiers. Her husband, Klaus, before his disappearance, amidst the fall of Berlin, had extracted a solemn promise to protect their child, no matter the cost. "Stay calm," Elsa urged, despite her own heart pounding wildly in her chest. "We have no choice." The camp gate groaned open, admitting 3 American soldiers whose boots crunched gratingly on the gravel. Instinctively, the women huddled closer, forming a protective circle. Elsa observed that the youngest soldier appeared no older than 20, his face retaining a boyish innocence beneath the rigid lines of his military uniform. "Ladies," the lead soldier began, addressing Margaret in German, his accent pronounced yet perfectly comprehensible. "We require information. How many of you are pregnant, and what are your estimated due dates?" Margaret's eyes widened with apprehension. "Why do you ask?" The soldier exchanged a swift glance with his companions. "Please answer the question." "There are 15 of us," Margaret finally conceded, her voice barely audible. "Some are due in weeks, others in months." The soldier nodded slowly, diligently noting the details in a small ledger. Elsa scrutinized his features, searching for the brutality and violence she had been warned about. What she discovered instead was an emotion that perplexed her more than any overt threat. Genuine concern. "Are there any complications? Is anyone ill?" he inquired, his gaze sweeping over the gaunt faces before him. "We are all hungry," Elsa heard herself declare, her voice stronger than she felt. "My baby. He moves less each day." The soldier's jaw tightened visibly. He turned to his companions, speaking in rapid English that Elsa could not decipher, before looking back at her, their eyes meeting for a brief, intense moment. "What is your name?" he asked. Elsa Hoffman. "How old are you?" "Elsa, 19. A fleeting expression of empathy or recognition crossed his face. He closed his notebook, squaring his shoulders. "We will return first thing tomorrow morning." As the soldiers departed, Margaret clutched Elsa's arm, her grip tight. "Why did you speak to them? Why did you tell them about the baby?" "I don't know," Elsa murmured, watching the soldiers disappear beyond the fence. "But did you see his face when I told him?" "What about it?" "He seemed angry, but not at us." That night, sleep eluded Elsa. She continuously replayed the soldier's expression, the meticulous way he wrote in his notebook, the tension in his voice when he promised to return. Her baby kicked weakly, a faint flutter against her hand, and she sang the lullaby her mother had taught her, wondering what the dawn would bring. The following morning, an unexpected symphony of sound shattered the camp's fragile quiet. Elsa woke to the rumbling roar of trucks and the urgent cadence of English voices. She struggled to her feet, her back aching from the thin mattress, and moved to the window of their converted barn. "My God," Margaret gasped, softly beside her. "What is this?" For military trucks idled outside the fence, soldiers moved with swift, purposeful efficiency, unloading wooden crates. The young soldier from yesterday, evidently in charge, directed operations with authoritative gestures, as others moved the boxers toward the camp entrance. "Everyone back," a guard shouted in German. Away from the gate, the women retreated, huddling together as the gate swung open. 6 soldiers entered, carrying the crates. The lead soldier from the previous day, whom Elsa had heard addressed as Sergeant Morrison, stepped forward. "We have brought supplies," he announced, in his heavily accented German medical provisions. "Food. Milk." "Milk?" Elsa repeated, certain she had misheard. "Powdered milk," Morrison confirmed, "for the mothers and for the babies after they are born." He gestured to another soldier, who pried open a crate. Inside were cans of powdered milk, baby bottles, clean bandages, and small vials that looked like vitamins. Margaret cautiously stepped forward. "Why are you doing this?" Morrison's expression turned solemn. "Because it is the right thing to do." He paused, evidently searching for the appropriate German words. "You are prisoners? Yes, but you are also mothers. These infants, they did not start this war. Our commanding officer isn't going to like this." A younger American soldier muttered in English. "Then they can come talk to me," Morrison retorted sharply in English, before switching back to German. "We have also brought a doctor. She will examine each of you." Elsa questioned, a spark of surprise in her voice. A woman in an American military uniform entered, carrying her medical bag. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with kind eyes and capable hands. "I am Lieutenant Sarah Chun," she stated in impeccable German. "I am a nurse. If you permit me, I would like to examine you and your babies." The women exchanged uncertain glances. This was entirely outside their expectations. "I'll go first," Elsa declared suddenly, stepping forward. Margaret reached for her arm, but Elsa pulled away. If they meant us harm, they would not have brought a nurse. Lieutenant Chun offered a gentle smile. "Thank you." "What is your name?" "Elsa Hoffman." "How far along are you?" "Elsa." 7 months, I think. "Perhaps 8. It's hard to know now." Chun nodded, opening her bag. "Let's take a look. When did you last feel the baby move?" "This morning, but not much. Not like before." The nurse's expression grew serious as she examined Elsa, her hands gentle and precise. Morrison stood by the door, arms crossed, a tense anticipation on his face, as if awaiting a verdict. "You are malnourished," Chun finally stated. "The baby is small, too small." She turned to Morrison. "She needs protein, real food, not just bread and water." "Can you make a list?" Morrison asked, his voice firm. "Everything they need." "That'll be a very long list, Sergeant. "I don't care. Make it." Elsa stared at him, a complex mix of confusion and an emotion she dared not name. Perhaps it was hope. "Why?" she asked in halting English. "Why are you helping us?" Morrison looked at her for a long moment. "My sister," he said slowly in German. "She died giving birth in Ohio. The doctor came too late." His voice grew hoarse. "I couldn't help her. But perhaps I can help you." 3 days brought changes to the camp that Elsa could scarcely have imagined. American soldiers delivered real food far beyond the thin gruel and stale bread they had subsisted on. Eggs, cheese, fresh bread, vegetables, and milk. So much powdered milk that Lieutenant Chun joked they could open a dairy. "Drink slowly," Chun instructed Elsa, watching her sip warm milk. "Your stomach needs time to adjust." Elsa nodded, savoring every drop. She already felt stronger. Her baby began to move more frequently, responding to the renewed nourishment. But with the physical relief came a deeper confusion, one that kept her awake at night. "I don't understand them," she confessed to Margaret one evening. "We are the enemy. Our husbands, our brothers fought these men. Perhaps they even killed their friends. And yet they brought us milk," Margaret finished, her fingers busy knitting a small blanket from yarn Chun had provided. "My son is fighting somewhere. Or was fighting. I don't know if he's still alive." She paused. "These American boys, they're also someone's sons. Does that make what we did, what Germany did, right?" Elsa asked, searching Margaret's face for answers. Margaret's hand stilled. "No, child, nothing makes that right. But," she looked at Elsa with weary eyes, "perhaps this is what happens when the killing stops. We remember. We are human." The barn door opened, admitting Morrison and another soldier, Elsa Hoffman. Elsa's heart skipped a beat. "Yes. We need to transfer you. You and 3 other pregnant women who are closest to delivery." Fear surged through her. "Transfer where?" "To a real hospital in town. The Austrian civilians aren't pleased about it, but Lieutenant Chun said, you need better facilities." Seeing her expression, he quickly added, You're not in trouble. It's for the babies. The Austrians hate us, Elsa whispered, her voice barely audible. We occupied their country. Yeah. Well, they'll have to get over it. Morrison sighed, his tone resolute. Gather your belongings. The truck leaves in 20 minutes. As Elsa packed her meager possessions, a photograph of Klaus, a letter from her mother, the small, unfinished blanket Margaret had been knitting her. Hands trembled. A hospital. Proper medical care for her baby. Elsa? Margaret called softly. Take this. She pressed the unfinished blanket into Elsa's hands. For when the baby comes. But it's not finished. You'll finish it. You'll have time and warm hands and a full belly. Margaret's eyes glistened with unshed tears. You will live. Your child will live. The truck journey through the Austrian countryside was surreal. Elsa and the 3 other expectant mothers sat in silence, watching the world outside the window. Damaged village buildings, fields beginning to green with spring, people stopping to stare at the American truck. Morrison sat in the front. Occasionally, he would turn, checking on them. Sergeant, Elsa called out in English, the word clumsy on her tongue. Your sister. What was her name? He turned, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Mary. She was called Mary. I'm sorry for Mary. The harsh lines on his face softened. Yeah, me too. The Ospitale convert in monastery had thick, cool stone walls. Austrian nuns moved through the corridors, their faces etched with cautious restraint as the German prisoners were led inside. Lieutenant Chun was already there, directing the setup of a makeshift maternity ward. This way, she said, leading Elsa into a clean room with a real bed. You will stay here until the baby comes. We will monitor you daily. Elsa sat on the bed, feeling the soft mattress, and suddenly the tears came. She couldn't stop them. Oh, the fear, the hunger, the gnawing uncertainty it poured out of her. Chun sat beside her, silent, simply placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. I thought they would hurt us, Elsa finally whispered. I thought, everyone said. I know what everyone said, Chun replied softly, her voice filled with quiet understanding. But not all soldiers are the same. Not all people are the same. She paused. Said again, Morrison. He is a good man. He sees you as people, not just enemies. But we are enemies. The war is over, Elsa. Now we are just people trying to survive. That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in months, Elsa felt her baby kicked with renewed vigor. She placed her hands on her belly, whispering, We will be all right. I don't know how, but we will be all right. 2 weeks later, Elsa awoke in agonizing pain that stole her breath. Contractions came in waves, each one stronger than the last. A nun ran to fetch Lieutenant Chun, who arrived within minutes. Calm and efficient. It's time, Chun said, after a quick examination of Elsa. You're doing well. Breathe deep. But as time wore on, Chun's expression grew concerned. The baby was not descending properly. Elsa was exhausted, her strength flagging despite weeks of improved nutrition. We may need to perform a C-section, Chun told Morrison, who had appeared outside the room and was pacing anxiously. But I'm a nurse, not a surgeon. I've assisted, but I've never— There's a German doctor, Morrison interrupted, his voice decisive. At the POW camp 15 miles from here, Dr. Friedrich Weber. He was a surgeon in Berlin. A prisoner, Chun asked, surprised. Yes, but he has the skills. Morrison's jaw was set. I'll get him here. The colonel would never authorize bringing an enemy prisoner of war to treat another enemy. Then I won't ask for permission. Morrison was already moving. Keep her stable. I'll be back in 3 hours. Elsa heard all this through a haze of pain. A German doctor, one of their own. The irony was not lost on her. An American soldier, breaking rules to save a German baby. Chun remained by her side, wiping her brow, offering encouragement. Hold on, Elsa. Just hold on. Time became meaningless. Pain and fear blurred into one. Elsa thought of Klaus, wondering if he was alive, if he would ever meet their child. She thought of her mother in Hamburg, likely lost to the bombings. She remembered Morrison's sister, Mary, who died in childbirth in Ohio. "I don't want to die," she whispered. "You won't," Chun stated firmly. "I won't let you." The door burst open. Morrison entered, accompanied by an older man in a worn German military uniform, clutching his medical bag. Dr. Weber's gaze swept the room, instantly assessing the situation. "How long has she been in labor?" he asked in German. 14 hours. Chun replied in the same language. "The baby is in distress. The heart rate is dropping." Weber moved to Elsa's side, his hands already beginning their examination. "We need surgery now. Do you have surgical equipment?" "Yes," Lieutenant Chun quickly responded, turning to Morrison. "Get someone to take her to the operating room." Weber looked at Morrison. "You brought me here. Now I need you to trust me." Morrison nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Save them both." The surgery was a blur of pain and muffled sounds. Elsa felt pressure, then pulling, and then a cry. The cry of a baby. Her child's cry. "It's a girl," Weber announced, his voice thick with emotion. "A healthy girl." Chun lifted the baby, placing her in Elsa's arms. She was tiny, red-faced, and utterly perfect. Elsa looked at her daughter, feeling her world shift on its axis. "What will you name her?" Chun asked, softly. Elsa looked up at Morrison, who stood in the doorway, his face a mixture of relief and something else, perhaps hope. And then she looked at Chun, who had been by her side through everything. Finally, she looked at Dr. Weber, who had risked everything to save a stranger's child. "Hope," Elsa whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Her name is Hope, because that is what all of you have given me." Morrison cleared his throat gruffly. "That's a good name." Dr. Weber finished the surgery, his hands steady despite his own exhaustion. Once he was done, Morrison stepped forward. "Thank you, Doctor. I am still your prisoner," Weber said softly. "Yeah, but you're also a man who just saved 2 lives. Morrison paused, his gaze significant. "That counts for something. That counts for everything." As Weber was escorted back to the POW camp, Elsa held Hope close, feeling her daughter's tiny heartbeat against her chest. Outside, spring was turning to summer. The war was over. The world was broken. But for this moment, in this room, there was life. There was kindness. There was hope. Perhaps, Elsa thought, it was enough to begin rebuilding. Summer arrived with an unexpected tenderness. The hospital ward, originally prepared for a single birth, now housed 7 German infants, their cries filling the old monastery's stone corridors. Elsa watched Hope sleep in her makeshift crib beside her bed, marveling at the sheer possibility contained within such a tiny life. "You're recovering well," Lieutenant Chun said during her morning rounds. "Another week, and you can return to the camp." The words washed over Elsa like a cold wave. Back to the camp. Back to the barn, the barbed wire, the uncertainty. In this quiet room, with its clean sheets and regular meals, she had allowed herself to forget that she was still a prisoner. "What will become of us?" Elsa asked softly. "And the children?" Chun's expression grew somber. "I don't know. The situation is complex. Germany is being divided. Refugees are everywhere. The camps are overflowing. So the Americans, they will just leave us here. That is not for me to decide." Chun slowly packed her medical bag. "But Sergeant Morrison is fighting for you. For all of you." He has written to his commander, to the Red Cross, and even to congressmen in Ohio. Elsa's throat tightened. Why does he care so much? Because he has seen too much death. "I think, saving you, saving Hope, it reminds him of what we fought for in the first place." Chun paused at the doorway, not for vengeance, but for life itself. That afternoon, Morrison brought news that made Elsa's heart pound. "We found him," he announced without preamble. "Your husband, Klaus Hoffmann. He's alive." Elsa's legs gave way. She sank onto the bed. "Where? How did you find him?" "In a British POW camp in northern Germany. He was injured, but he's recovering." The Red Cross confirmed it. Morrison handed her a piece of paper. "It's from him." Elsa's trembling hands unfolded the letter. Klaus's handwriting, familiar and intimate, blurred before her eyes. My dearest Elsa, if this letter reaches you, know that I am alive and thinking of you every moment. I heard you were taken by the Americans. I pray for your safety. I pray for our child's safety. I will find you. I promise. Wait for me, your Klaus. Tears streamed down Elsa's face. He doesn't know. He doesn't know about hope. Right back, Morrison said softly. I will make sure he gets it. Elsa looked up at him. This American soldier who had become someone she never expected. A friend. Thank you for everything. I don't know how I can ever repay. You don't owe me anything. Morrison's voice was firm. Just take good care of that child. Raise her to be better than us. That will be payment enough. In the days that followed, Elsa wrote and rewrote her letter to Klaus, attempting to convey everything that had transpired. The fear, the unexpected kindness, the birth of their daughter. She told him about Morrison and Chun, about Dr. Weber, and how the milk and medicine had saved their lives. I named her Hope, she wrote. Because in the darkest moment, these strangers gave us hope. A hope that the world could be different, that enemies could once again see each other as human. But as she sealed the letter, a sudden commotion erupted in the corridor. Voices, loud, angry, and sharp. Morrison's voice, defensive. Another man's voice, filled with cold authority. Chun rushed into the room, her face pale. Grab Hope. They're moving you. Who? Where? The colonel's orders. All German prisoners are to be immediately transferred to a larger facility today. Elsa's trembling hands clutched Hope close. But the other babies, they're too small to travel. I know. Morrison is trying to stall. But the door opened. Another American officer entered, his uniform immaculate, his expression grim. Behind him, Morrison stood, his fists clenched, his face red with controlled fury. Frau Hoffmann, the colonel said in crisp German, you and the other women are to be ready to depart within 1 hour. Gather your belongings. Sir, these women just gave birth, Morrison protested, his voice strained. Some less than a week ago. They are not strong enough. That is not our concern. Saji, we are not running a charity hospital. These are enemy nationals, and they need to be processed through proper channels. Proper channels. Morrison's voice rose. They are mothers with newborn children. Enough, Sergeant. The colonel's tone turned glacial. You have overstepped your authority multiple times. You should be grateful I am not bringing charges against you for unauthorized use of military resources. Morrison's jaw worked, but he said nothing. The colonel turned back to Elsa. 1 hour, Frau Hoffmann. After the colonel left, Morrison slammed his fist against the wall. Damn it! I'm sorry, Elsa. I tried. I know, Elsa whispered, holding Hope tighter. You did more than anyone expected. More than we deserved. Don't say that. You deserved basic humanity. That's not something you should have to earn. Chun appeared with a bag. I've put together supplies, formula, bottles, bandages, medicine. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I'm so sorry. The hour passed too quickly. Elsa found herself in the back of a truck with several other mothers, their babies crying in the heat. Margaret was there too, brought from the main camp to help care for the infants. Where are they taking us? A young woman asked, her voice laced with terror. I don't know, Margaret said, trying to offer what little comfort she could. But we have each other, and we have our children. That counts for something. As the truck pulled away, Elsa looked back. Morrison stood watching, his hands in his pockets, his shoulders slumped. Chun stood beside him, wiping her eyes. They had defied orders, defied protocol, defied the simple hatred that war breeds, in an effort to extend a hand. Hope whimpered in Elsa's arms, and she began to sing softly, the same lullaby her mother had taught her. Around her, the other mothers joined in, their voices intertwining in the back of the military truck as it carried them toward an uncertain future. The new facility was precisely as Elsa had feared. A sprawling camp surrounded by high fences and guard towers, crammed with thousands of German prisoners. Women, children, and the elderly were all housed in long, crowded barracks, with scarcely any privacy, let alone comfort. "At least we are together," Margaret offered, attempting to find some positive aspect as they were assigned to a crowded barracks. "The babies, the mothers, they kept us together." It was true, but little solace. Conditions were dire. Food was once again scarce. Medical care was minimal. The American soldiers here were not cruel, but they were not like Morrison. They were weary, overwhelmed, simply trying to manage an impossible situation. Elsa rationed the formula Chun had given her, making each bottle of powdered milk last as long as possible. She watched Hope constantly, terrified that her daughter would fall ill in this desolate place. Around her, other infants cried from hunger, the heat, and the general misery of the camp. "My milk has dried up," a young mother sobbed. "I can't feed my son. What am I to do?" Elsa shared her formula, though she knew it wouldn't last long. Other mothers did the same, pooling their meager resources. They took turns caring for the infants, singing to them, striving to create some semblance of normalcy amidst the chaos. Weeks stretched into months. The stifling summer heat turned the barracks into ovens. Elsa's letter to Klaus was never sent. Morrison was not there to ensure its delivery. She didn't even know if he had faced repercussions for helping them. The thought kept her awake at night. Then, on a sweltering August morning, everything changed. "Elsa Hoffman," a guard shouted. "Report to the administrative building." Fear surged through her. Margaret clutched her arm. "Don't go. It could be." "I have to." Elsa handed Hope to Margaret. "If I don't come back, you must come back for her," Margaret said firmly. "You must." The walk to the administrative building seemed interminable. Elsa's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Had they discovered about Klaus? Was she to be separated from Hope? Deported. But as she stepped into the office, she froze. Morrison stood there in a fresh uniform, a smile breaking across his face when he saw her. "Sergeant Morrison." Elsa's voice was a mere whisper. "I've been transferred," he explained quickly. "I requested it, pulled every string I had, actually." He gestured to a middle-aged, kind-faced woman beside him. "This is Mrs. Eleonora Patterson. She's with the Quaker Relief Organization." Mrs. Patterson stepped forward, speaking in fluent German. "Frau Hoffman, we have been working to relocate nursing mothers and their infants to better facilities, where you can receive proper care and the babies can thrive." "I don't understand," Elsa said, bewildered. Morrison's smile widened. "We're getting you out of here. You, Hope, and 15 other mothers with babies. There's a displaced persons camp in Bavaria. It's not perfect, but it's better than this. Proper housing, medical care, and enough food. But how?" "Sergeant Morrison has been very persistent," Mrs. Patterson said with a slight smile. "He presented your case, and that of the other mothers, to several international humanitarian organizations. We've secured approval for your transfer." Elsa felt tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll pack your bags," Morrison said softly. "You leave tomorrow." That night, Elsa held Hope close, telling her about the man who never gave up, the man who saw beyond uniforms and flags, and recognized humanity. Margaret listened, her own eyes moist. "Will I go?" Margaret asked softly. "I'll make sure of it," Elsa promised. "You looked after all of us. You deserve this too." The next morning, as Elsa climbed into the truck that would take them to Bavaria, she saw Morrison one last time. She walked to him, holding Hope. "I want you to know something," she said in careful English. "When Hope grows up, I will tell her your story, everything you did, about the American soldier who showed us that kindness is stronger than hatred." Morrison's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Raise her well, Elsa. Teach her that people are more important than politics. That's all I ask. I will. I promise." As the truck drove away, Elsa watched Morrison grow smaller in the distance. She thought of how war had forged a connection between them as enemies, and how humanity had utterly transformed them into something else entirely. Perhaps not friends. The wounds were still too fresh, but they were witnesses to each other's humanity. Proof that, even in the darkest moments, light could pierce through. Hope whimpered softly in her arms, and she began to sing softly. the same lullaby her mother had taught her. Elsa smiled, for it was the first time in years that the future seemed less dark. The displaced persons camp in Bavaria was a revelation. Real buildings, not barracks. Gardens where vegetables grew. A school for older children. A medical clinic staffed by volunteers from various relief organizations. It was not home. Elsa didn't know if she would ever have a home again, but it was a place where hope could thrive. Lieutenant Chun appeared 2 weeks after their arrival, now working for the Red Cross. She examined Hope with professional thoroughness, then smiled. She's thriving. You're doing wonderfully, Elsa. Thanks to you. And Morrison. He's well. He's actually back in the States. Discharged last month. Chun produced an envelope. He asked me to give you this. Elsa's trembling hands opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. Morrison with his family in Ohio, his arm around a woman who must be his wife. 2 small children stood at their feet. On the back, in simple German, was written, "This is what we fought for. Not to destroy, but to protect. I hope you and Hope find your own measure of this happiness. Take care, James Morrison." "James," Elsa murmured softly. "I never knew his name." "He didn't know your middle name was Marie," Chun replied, a hint of melancholy in her voice. "It's strange, isn't it, that we can save each other's lives, yet remain strangers in some ways. But they were not strangers, not really. They were connected by something deeper than names or nations. By the choice to see humanity in the face of the enemy, to extend a hand when hatred would have been easier. Months turned into seasons. Autumn became winter. Winter became spring. Hope learned to smile, tend to lug, then to roll over. Elsa found work in the camp, helping to organize supplies. She befriended other displaced women, all trying to build new lives from the wreckage of the old. Then, on a sunny May morning, exactly 1 year after Hope's birth, a man appeared at the camp gates. He was thin, walked with a slight limp, and his face was etched with hardship. But Elsa recognized him instantly. "Klaus," she whispered, her voice barely audible. He saw her and ran, forgetting his limp. Te embraced a homecoming after a long, dark journey. He wept. She wept. Between them, Hope cried too, startled by the commotion. "This is..." Klaus stepped back, staring at the baby in Elsa's arms. "This is Hope, your daughter." Klaus gently took Hope, his hands trembling. He looked at her with a mixture of wonder, love, and the only a new father can feel. "She's beautiful. She's perfect. She is alive because of an American soldier," Elsa said softly, "because he chose kindness over hatred." That night, as they sat in the small room Elsa had been assigned, she recounted everything to Klaus, about Morrison and Chun, about Dr. Weber, and about the milk and medicine, and the hospital where Hope was born, about the colonel who tried to move them too soon, and Morrison's transfer to continue helping, about the photograph and the message. Klaus listened in silence, his arm around her shoulders, Hope sleeping peacefully between them. When she finished, he was silent for a long time. "I spent a year hating them," he finally said. "The Americans, the British, all of them, hating that they won, that they defeated us, that we lost everything." He looked down at Hope. "But they saved my daughter. They saved my wife. How do I reconcile that?" "I don't know," Elsa confessed. "I don't know if we're meant to reconcile it. Perhaps we just have to remember it. Remember that even in war, even when everything tells us to hate, some people chose differently. This soldier Morosini owe him everything. We both do, and the only way to repay him is to do as he asked. Raise Hope to be better than us, to teach her that people are more important than politics." Klaus nodded slowly. "Then that is what we will do." The years that followed were difficult. Germany was divided. The world was changing, and displaced persons, like Elsa and Klaus, had to fight for every opportunity. But they survived. They found work, eventually securing passage to America through a refugee program, and began a new life in a small town in Pennsylvania. Hope grew up hearing the story of her birth, of the American soldier who brought milk and medicine when cruelty was expected. She grew up knowing her life was a gift, not earned through violence, but through compassion. When she was old enough to understand, Elsa gave her the photograph of Morrison and his family. "This man saved your life," she said. "Never forget that enemies can see each other as human. Never forget that kindness is a choice, and it is the most important choice we can make." 30 years later, Hope Morrison Hoffman, who took Morrison as her middle name when she became an American citizen, stood in a small town in Ohio, her children by her side. She had spent months tracking down James Morrison, the man whose kindness had given her life. The house was modest, well-maintained, with a garden out front. An old man sat on the porch, his hair white, his face etched with the passage of time, but his eyes were still the same kind, thoughtful, profoundly human. "Mr. Morrison," Hope called out. He looked up, squinting in the sunlight. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Hope walked closer, her heart pounding. "My name is Hope Hoffman. You knew my mother, Elsa, in Austria in 1945. Morrison's eyes widened. He slowly rose, leaning on his cane. "Elsa? Little Elsa? The pregnant one? You're the baby. I am the baby you saved. The one you brought milk and medicine for." Morrison stood stunned for a moment. Then his face crumpled, and tears streamed down his weathered cheeks. "You're alive. You're here." "I'm here because of you," Hope said, her own voice thick with emotion. "Because you chose to help, even when you didn't have to. Because you saw my mother as a person, not just an enemy." Morrison reached out with trembling hands, touching Opie's face, as if to confirm she was real. "I sometimes thought about you, about all of you. I wondered if any of you had made it, if it made any difference. We made it. We thrived. I have children of my own now." Hope gestured to her, 2 teenagers, who watched WWII. "I told them your story, about how a soldier proved that humanity is stronger than hatred." Morrison looked at Hope's children, then back at Hope. "I just did the right thing, what anyone should have done. But not everyone did," Hope said softly. "You did, and that made all the difference." They spent the afternoon together, Morrison and the woman he had saved, sharing stories and memories. He told her about coming home from the war, the nightmares that haunted him, and how helping those pregnant women was the only thing he could look back on without regret. Hope told him about growing up in America, about becoming a nurse like Lieutenant Shun, about dedicating her life to helping refugees and displaced persons, passing on the kindness her mother had received. As the sun began to set, Hope prepared to leave, but she had one more thing to give him. She pulled out an envelope, addressed in her mother's handwriting. "My mother passed away 2 years ago," Hope said softly. "Cancer. But before she died, she wrote this letter. She wanted you to have it." Morrison opened the letter with trembling hands. Elsa's careful English script filled the pages. "Dear James, I don't know if you will ever read this, but I needed to write it. You saved my daughter's life and mine, but you did something even more important. You saved my faith in humanity. In the darkest time in history, you showed me that people can choose kindness over cruelty, compassion over hatred. You taught me that our worst moments don't have to define us, and we can always choose to be better." Hope grew up hearing your story. She became a nurse because of you, dedicating her life to helping others, just as you helped us. Your kindness didn't just save 2 lives. It rippled out, touching hundreds. Thank you, James Morrison. Thank you for seeing us as people. Thank you for bringing milk and medicine when we expected only punishment. Thank you for being the kind of man who makes the world better, even in the smallest ways. You were once my enemy, but you became my proof that enemies are merely people who haven't yet recognize their shared humanity. Forever grateful, Elsa Hoffman. Morrison read the letter twice, tears streaming down his weathered cheeks. When he finally looked up, he could barely speak. I wish I could have told her. I wish she knew. She knew, Hope said softly. She always knew. As Hope and her children drove away, she glanced back at the old man on the porch, still holding her mother's letter. Her daughter, in the back seat, asked softly, "Mom, why were you crying?" Hope wiped her eyes and smiled. "Because I just witnessed something beautiful. I saw a man realize that his kindness mattered, that it reverberated across decades, changing the world in ways he never imagined." "Did it really change the world?" her son asked. "One soldier helping some prisoners." Hope thought of her mother, of the life they built, of her own career helping refugees, of her children growing up knowing that compassion was the highest calling. She thought of all the lives she had influenced, all the people she had helped, all because one soldier chose kindness over hatred. Yes, she affirmed, her voice resolute. It changed the world. Perhaps not the entire world, but at least our asterisk world. And sometimes that is enough. The car continued through the Ohio countryside, carrying forward the profound legacy of a singular moment. In 1945, a time when enemies saw each other as human, when milk and medicine became symbols of hope, and when one person's choice to help proved that even in the darkest of times, light could pierce through. And in the fading light of that spring evening, the echo of that choice continued to ripple outwards, touching lives yet to come, proving that kindness is never wasted. Humanity always matters, and the smallest act of compassion can truly change everything.